Anybody who's ever been a parent knows that it is 20 to 30 years of complete terror because you are always worried about your kids, even when they're grown, even when they're out of the house. You never stop worrying about them. But when they are small and vulnerable and exploratory, experimental, taking chances, you're living in abject fear pretty much every waking moment. We want to talk to you on this episode of Off the Record, and FBI uses perspective about things you can do to help keep your kids safe, things you can do, things they can do. Hopefully, it's a knowledge that you can control at least some part of your environment. Will make you feel a little bit more, give you a little peace of mind, shall we say. I'm Clark Donley, along with Jessica Hemmelgarn and Harry Trombitas, retired FBI special agent. Harry, during the course of your career, you dealt with a lot of cases involving missing persons, and the most disturbing are always the ones involving missing kids. What are some of the things that parents should know, or, if there's a little kid out there listening, they should know about staying safe when you're still small, still not getting out on your own as much, but still out there in the world where it's sometimes a dangerous place?
And before Harry starts, I just want to say that this is geared upper elementary school and lower. So just so all of you that are listening, when we say kids, we mean kids about 13, younger than 13.
Yeah. So Harry, what would you tell parents and those kids, if they're listening, who are, those elementary school, maybe early middle school years, how to stay safe in a scary world?
Yeah, thanks, Clark and Jessica. I would say in general, kids, first of all, should listen to and trust their parents. They've been through the same things that you're going through right now. And I would just encourage kids to pay attention to those things, that there's nobody that loves you more than your parents. And again, they worry about you, and that's normal. So do everything you can to listen to what they say and trust them. It's going to keep you a lot safer in life if you do that. But in general, I would say, and again, this is geared towards younger kids. I think one of the first things that parents should do is make sure that a child knows his full name, his address, his or her address, and how to get in contact with you as a parent if the child needs you in an emergency. So again, going through that, memorization is a good thing. I doubt that they'll have a phone at this early age. So memorizing your name, your address, and your parents' phone numbers, I think, are really critical. Remember, kids, that there are some bad people out there. Most people are good. They would never think of hurting a kid. But unfortunately, we have some bad ones, and they don't wear bad guy stamped on their forehead. So it's awful difficult to be able to distinguish between who's a good person and who's a bad person. So in general, be careful of people that you don't know. Trust your gut. If someone makes you feel uncomfortable, it's okay to tell an adult no. If an adult wants you to do something, again, especially if there's someone you don't know, it's okay for you to say no. You're not going to get in trouble. And no is a very powerful word. And so feel free to use it whenever you feel it's appropriate.
And if you're a parent and you're teaching your kid these lessons, also accept when they say no to you. So if your kid is telling you to stop, hey, you're tickling your kid and they say stop. If you stop right away, then your child is learning that no and stop are acceptable words to say to adults. And when adults don't listen, that is also a key factor. So when you're teaching these lessons to your kids, you're also visually showing them what it looks like to be a safe and trusted adult.
Yeah, good point, Jessica. If someone makes you feel uncomfortable, again, you don't have to stay there. You don't have to stand there and take it or be exposed to this. Run away, attract attention to yourself, scream. A child screaming will get the attention of most adults right away. And if I'm a bad person and I'm trying to get a kid to try to do something that they don't want to do, if that child starts running away and starts to scream, I'm not going to hang around. I'm going to let them go and get out of the area. So again, use your legs to get away, use your voice to scream if someone makes you feel uncomfortable. No one is allowed to touch your body without your approval. Know the difference between a safe and unsafe touches. If your parents are holding you and cuddling you and kissing on you because they love you, that's a good touch. Uh, that's what parents do. They love their children, and that's okay. But if somebody that you don't know or somebody that you don't trust is trying to hold you and hug you and kiss on you, that's not acceptable. And make sure that you say no, run away, scream, do whatever you need to do. Just don't let them, because they're an adult, get away with doing things that are inappropriate. If you get lost, say you're at a store, or if you're just in the neighborhood, or you go to visit somebody and now you've been walking around and you're lost. Stay where you are. Typically, people will start looking for you where they last saw you. So again, try not to go too far away from where you were before you got lost. If you see an adult, ask him for help. Let him know that you're lost. If you see a police officer or a security officer in a store, it's good to ask them to help you get back reunited with your parents. So don't hesitate to
I'm
reach out for somebody like an adult to help you.
I'm going to talk in a few minutes about pamphlets and other information available from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And one of them is how to recognize or how to deal with a child who appears to be lost. So looking at it from the grown-up point of view.
Okay, that's a good point.
And if you're teaching it to your child, helpers look different in every different place. So a police officer can look different than a firefighter. They can look different than a security guard, or if you're at an amusement park, they'll look even different still. So if you're a parent teaching this to your child, when you're in these places, say, "Oh, look, that's a helper in this store. That's what a Target employee looks like. That's what a helper looks like at Target. That's what a helper looks like at this amusement park. That's what a police officer looks like," because it isn't uniform across all the different places. So identifying it and showing it to your kids on a frequent and regular basis is very helpful.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, and I would add some additional safety tips. So things like don't keep secrets from your parents. There are so many opportunities for you to get involved in something that turns out to be bad, and it can overwhelm you, and you just think about it all the time. I shouldn't have done this. I wish I wouldn't have done it, or I wish that this particular person wouldn't have grabbed me and touched me. I'm too embarrassed to say anything, so I'm going to keep it from my parents. And I would just encourage kids to understand that your parents love you, and there's nothing that you can tell them that is inappropriate. They have your best interest in mind. So if you did something that you're not proud of, or if you were touched by somebody that shouldn't have touched you, please don't keep it to yourself. Get it off your chest. Tell your parents about it, and they'll make things better than you holding it in and trying to deal with it yourself. That's what your parents are there for them to help you along, as you grow.
And as a parent, you help create that environment. So make sure that you're listening to your kids, even when you think it might be small. I'm guilty of that, where my child will tell me, "I wanted the blue cup." And I'm like, "It's just a color cup. It doesn't matter." If you listen to your kids now about the things that matter, the small things, they're going to start coming to you with the bigger things because they know you actually want to listen. So creating that environment as a family is really important. And also just that phrase that we don't keep secrets in our house. We don't keep secrets. We just don't. And teaching that as they start to grow up is really helpful.
Yep. Yeah, very true.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say also for kids listening, or parents, to make sure that they are constantly emphasizing the dangers in playing with objects like guns, knives, or fire. and making sure that you as a parent, if you have firearms at home, that you keep those firearms locked and secured at all times. Kids can get into anything. They can get into all kinds of trouble, as you know, as a parent. So it's incumbent upon you as the adult in the house to make sure that you're putting away dangerous items like guns, and same thing with knives too. You know, obviously a child can hurt themselves with a knife as well. So keep those items out of reach of your children, and emphasize the dangers of playing with fire, playing with a match, or playing with a lighter, or those little propane lighters that we have. You know, somebody could flick a lighter like that and start a house fire, and that could kill people. So fires are nothing to play with, and parents should continue to emphasize those things. And I would just throw in too, make sure that if you're somewhere swimming, make sure there's somebody there that can keep an eye on you or swim with you, so that if you have cramps or something that happens, or you get tired, that there's somebody there that can help you. Never go into a pool and swim by yourself. Make sure there's an adult or somebody else there that can get help if there's an emergency. And parents, if you're visiting a theme park, even though we try very hard to keep an eye on our kids, why don't you take a picture of your child each morning before you leave your home or you leave your motel room? Because when a kid goes missing and you're under stress about what did they look like, what were they wearing last, sometimes you can forget, did they have the blue shirt on or did they have the red one on? You know, were they wearing jeans or were they wearing shorts? If you take a photo every morning as you're preparing to leave for the theme park or someplace else where there's going to be a lot of people, take that photo so that it's an accurate depiction of exactly what the child looked like, what it was wearing, and you can give that to the security at the theme park or the location you're at, or the police as well. And they don't have to guess what the child looks like. It's right there in front of them. And I would encourage everybody to utilize the FBI's child identification app. This is a very useful tool. It's downloadable through iTunes, or if you have an Android phone, through Google Play. This is an app that you can create for your kids. It talks about it. You can upload a picture or two. It has room for a description of your children. You can keep it updated as they get older. You know, height, weight, hair color, eye color. All those things are very important. And another thing that I would recommend in addition to the child identification app is, when you're at home, if you have a Q-tip, take a DNA sample of your child, and all you do is you stick that Q-tip inside the child's mouth, and you rub it up against the cheek, the inside of the cheek, and then you take that Q-tip and you let that dry, and then once it's dry, you put it inside a plastic bag or a paper bag, and write on it, your child's name, the date that the DNA sample was taken, and you keep it where you would keep your most important papers. That way, if your child ever goes missing for any period of time, you have a DNA sample that you can provide to law enforcement. So again, should a child be found, it can be compared with the DNA sample to make sure it's the right child. And that can happen if a child goes missing over a long period of time, or in a terrible situation where a body is found and they're trying to make a determination whether that could be your child or not. You have this DNA swab of your child. And yeah, it's morbid. It's something we don't want to think about, but it's much, much better to have that in case you should, God forbid, ever need anything like that. So Do it now. DNA, you don't have to take the DNA swab every year. It's the same DNA over and over again. We will have it until we die. Again, one time you take it, that's all you have to do.
All
Can
right,
we
good.
go back to large group gatherings really quickly? Because I know a lot of parents worry about that. So we talked about a theme park and large groups. So you said take pictures of your children each day that you're there. I have some questions for you, Harry, about some ideas people have had, and I want to know if, from a law enforcement perspective, these are great ideas. So I've heard lots of safety tips, everything from writing your parent or guardian's name and phone number, putting it on tape and putting it inside the shirt of your child. I've heard air tag your child. I've heard lots of different things. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on other ways that you can keep them safe in a large setting, like a theme park or a giant concert or a festival or something like that.
That's many different ways that we can do that. Certainly, having something that would identify your child in an emergency, I think is good. I think the problem is not everybody would know to look inside the shirt or something like that. So unless it's obvious to someone, I don't know. It might be helpful again, but especially if the child knows that, hey, I'm lost. I should give this tag to an adult. And they pointed out to the person that they're dealing with. It has their name and an emergency, your emergency number on it for the adult to call. I think that would be helpful. But again, taking pictures of your child ahead of time is a great idea. As far as the tag, I think that's a good idea. If you could stick it in your child's pocket, I think that would be good. It again, it's going to tell you where that child is at all times, and I think that would be a helpful tool for you to have. So all the things that you've mentioned, I think, are helpful to varying degrees.
Jesse, you emphasize the importance of communication to encourage children to talk to you and be willing to listen. But depending on the age of the child, they might not always have the words they need or the awareness they need to describe what is happening to them. What are some of the ways that you've taught your kids, or you've heard parents teach their kids about how to communicate when something is wrong and they want their parent to know about
So that's really hard if they don't have language to tell you.
it? Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing is getting on their level and listening and trying to decipher what they're saying, but also talking to them like an adult and not using baby words is one of the bigger tips I've seen. So, especially when you're talking about parts of the body and what is their special part and what should be uncomfortable for other people to touch, is really utilizing the actual names of the words and not calling them by like cute names, but definitely calling them what they are, that they're off limits, and then listening when they tell you. For example, if your child is like, oh, someone touched my butt because we were playing tag. Well, you and I both know that that's not the same type of touching we're talking about, right? But if you dismiss that child's telling you, then they won't tell you the next time. So really just listening when they talk to you. One of the biggest things that we've heard a lot about is when I was growing up, it was stranger danger, right? Strange people and recognizing strange people. But there's been a really big shift to, instead of stranger danger, it's strange behavior. So this idea of this random stranger obviously is not hopefully going to come up and talk to you. But instead of it just being strangers, unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of people who are close to children demonstrating some not preferable behavior. So the idea of teaching kids to recognize strange behavior will help recognize odd situations, both with strangers and with people they know. So that idea of like, an adult's never going to try and ask to touch your body. And if they are, then that's probably not great. An adult is also not going to ask you to keep secrets from your parents. If they say that they are, then that's not great. So these ideas of like strange behaviors I've seen a huge shift in the parenting world in that way.
All right. One of the resources that I found that helps parents avoid or prepare themselves for that worst case scenario, that is a child going missing, and even worse than that, being abducted or kidnapped, is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So I want to recommend to parents that they go to that website, nicmec.org, and check out the information that's there. They've got some great publications, but some of the information that I got from them about things that you should tell your child if they are, they're heading out into the world for the first time, if they're small. They're going to daycare, or they're going to childcare, or they're going to kindergarten or school. First of all, learn their route. If they're walking themselves, if they're old enough to do that, learn the route they're taking, so that if they don't come home or they don't get to school, you'll know what to tell the police right away to where they should have been. And then if they're small and you're still dropping them off, learn the school or the child care center's pickup policy. Make sure you're really well acquainted with that, because unfortunately, that is one of the ways that people who should not be taking kids, and non-custodial parents is an example of that, are picking kids up at school because the school or the daycare or child care employees are not aware of the situation. There are methods that your child should be aware of. Jessie, you mentioned a couple of them, but there are things that a stranger should never ask a child. And if they do, that is strange behavior. An adult never needs to ask a child for directions. The National Center points out there are 5 methods that abductors typically use: offering a child a ride, offering a child candy, asking them a question, offering a child some money, telling them they've got an animal they want to show them, maybe it's a puppy or a kitten, or something even more exotic. These are things that should automatically tell your child this person is a bad person, to get away. And that's when they follow your advice, Harry. Say no, and yell loud, and they run. There are some other bits of information that you can find out from these pamphlets, such as, when is it time to be okay to leave your child home alone? And the most important thing is, judge their maturity level. Are they old enough to handle the responsibilities of taking care of themselves? Do they know how to call you? Do they know how to call, or a neighbor? Do they know how to call 911? Can they lock the door behind them so nobody that can get in? Those are some of the things that you want to keep in mind. The center also has some advice for families who are undergoing those really stressful situations, such as if a child does go missing. They have the family survival guide. And they also have tips on preventing child abduction and then searching for a missing child, and information on endangered runaways, because a lot of kids who go missing are, choose to run away, especially when they get to be a little bit older. And there's also information on that website about athletes and abuse. This is something that has been in the news a lot over the course of the last 10 years or so, that a lot of athletes are being abused by coaches. So there's a publication on the NCMEC website about how to recognize that, how to deal with that. But, communication and, as you said, Harry, being willing to say no, and run away, and, Jessie, being able to recognize when behavior is not appropriate, are 2 of the most important ways that your kid can keep themselves safe when they go out there. Let me tell you, that website again is missingkids.org. Anybody, any final parting thoughts for our listeners?
I would just say be aware and be present. And that's all the advice I keep getting from pretty much, if you're a parent nowadays, there's advice literally everywhere on everything. And you think you get one down and then there's another piece of advice. But the biggest thing I would say is being aware and keep your head on a swivel, as Harry likes to tell us. But also just knowing what's going on in your kid's life and creating that relationship where they can share that with you is really important, whether they can speak or whether not. Just pretend that you understand what they're saying, but get that conversation started if they're young, and make them feel like their voice matters. And that will be a really big key.
Harry, I know you agree with that approach.
Yeah, I can't agree more. You've got to be involved. You got to know what's going on. Kids expect that out of their parents. They want that out of their parents. They may not admit that, but that shows that you care. And, there is a time and place to give them a little freedom, but in general, you've got to be involved. You got to know what's going on. You got to know who they're talking to, what they're doing, who their friends are. It's critical. That's our job as a parent. And having worked so many missing kid cases over my career, it's imperative that we're involved. And now, more than ever, we're seeing situations where kids are contacted online and kid may be having a hard time at home, they're getting in trouble, they're grounded, whatever the situation is. And then they meet somebody online who paints a really attractive picture of, hey, come hang out with me, we'll go these places, you can leave your bad life behind and you can come, travel around with me. And they portray a beautiful picture of what life could be with them. And, it's not hard to see how a child that is having some struggles at home or at school maybe is attracted to that kind of thing. So you've got to know, you've got to be involved in your child, know who they're communicating with, what they're doing. And, that's having a child is a gift from God. And we've got to take care of that gift. And, nobody else is going to do it better than a parent. So that's our responsibility.
A delicate balance those parents walk between allowing your child to explore the world around them while keeping them safe from that world. At the same time, check out the show notes for this episode. You'll find links to places where you can find out more information about what we've talked about. And for Jessica Hemmelgarn and for Harry Trombitas, retired FBI Special Agent, I'm Clark Donley. Thanks for listening to Off the Record, an FBI Agent's Perspective. Hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll see you again next time.
Off the Record, an FBI Agent's Perspective is created and hosted by Clark Donnelly, Harry Trombitas, and Jessie Hemmelgarn. Produced by Jessie Hemmelgarn. Stories in this podcast are inspired by Harry Trombitas' autobiography, Dark Places, about his time in the FBI. Music is called Cruise in the Back and is available on Storyblocks. You can find this podcast on all your favorite podcast platforms, YouTube, and on our website.